Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday, November 24th. Um, I'd like to do a couple things today. I would like to talk about presentation very quickly. I would like to um, finish up watch a little more of the Greece documentary, and then I'd like to give you a little more time to work on your projects because that's coming up frighteningly quickly, I would say, right? So, you want me to talk about presentation first? Okay. So, two things. I think I've said some of these things before, but I'm just going to say them so that I make sure they're said. I'll also put them in Microsoft Teams so you can refer to them. I think what I'm going to do, is, I think we're safe to start the presentations on Tuesday. Okay. So originally I was going to start them Monday because you really don't want to start late and then run out of time, right? That would be and run out of days. That would be the worst. But I think we're okay. I think we can safely start on Tuesday for presentations, okay? So I'll put that in Microsoft Teams just for reference. Second one, make sure that you turn in your presentation to me before that time, okay? So use the assignment feature in Microsoft Teams like you've done before, and you can just attach your PowerPoint or your Keynote, whatever it is, attach it to the assignment and submit it so that I have a copy of it. And when you present, I'll also run it from my laptop because I'll be probably running Zoom on that day. So I'll kind of share the screen so that we can see it, but also people at home, people at home can see it. And then I'll change slides for you. You just tell me when to do it, okay? Let's see. The other thing I mentioned is that I'll randomly choose names. So I have a little internet thing that spins the wheel and chooses your name. So the order will be kind of selected randomly, but you need to be here and you need to be ready to go when your name comes up, okay? If you're not here when your name comes up, I'm not marking it and I'm giving you 0, okay? That sounds incredibly harsh, I understand, but again, if I don't do that, people will not show up, or, oh, my partner's not here, or, oh, I'm not quite ready yet. So you gotta be here and you gotta be ready to go, because if I spin the wheel and your name comes up, you are up, okay? So apologize for the harshness, but that's experience teaches me that's just how we have to do it. Yeah, and so that's all. So we'll start on Tuesday and we'll go until we're finished. You know, hopefully on Thursday, but maybe if we need Friday, we'll take a little bit of Friday too, okay? Again, I'll give you some more time to work on those this afternoon. But for now, maybe let's go back to ancient Greece and try to clear up a little bit of that, okay? So that's not ancient Greece, that's social justice. Let's get rid of that. There we go. That's ancient Greece. So there we go. So we're kind of smack in the middle of the classical period, right? So this is kind of the period of, you know, a lot of things happen, a lot of art and architecture and literature and philosophy and political changes and wars and all kinds of things. It's a very eventful time for ancient Greece, and particularly for Athens and Sparta, right? They're going to have a very eventful classical period here. We talked a little bit about how, I'm going to jump ahead here. We talked a little bit about how Athens gains its democracy, right? We said that originally Solon created some democratic reforms to give kind of a little bit of democracy to Athens, but then it was very quickly kind of pushed aside by a few tyrants, right? So this guy Pisistratus rolls into town. He's got some young woman with him who says she's the goddess Athena. Probably not, but that's what she says. He makes himself kind of a single ruler, a tyrant, a king, and he does okay for a while, but when he dies, he's replaced by his sons, right? Hippias and Hipparchus. both of them stink. They're terrible rulers. They're cruel. And so the Athenians assassinate one of them and then use the Spartans to drive out the others, right? So again, they're kind of, Athens kind of gets rid of the tyrants, but then they have to come up with a new political system, right? And a nobleman, it kind of falls to a nobleman, Cleisthenes, to do this. And I wonder what that was. Oh. He creates a political system. What's going on with my slides here? Oh, yeah. He creates a political system that is really strange for the ancient world, right? To give power to the people, right? Who's going to rule the people? Well, the people are going to rule themselves, right? This is a very strange thing to do 2,500 years ago, right? Nobody does this. The mere thought of it is ridiculous, right? To most places, to let the people rule themselves, crazy, right? But here, Cleisthenes seems to create a system that, he's able to make work, right? And we watched a little bit of this documentary on how democracy comes to Athens, and we said that it's really based on kind of full direct democracy and direct participation, right? So all of the citizens of Athens, which are kind of just the landowning males whose parents were both Athenians, so it's not everybody, but still, all of the Athenian citizens vote on every proposition, right? Every decision that they have to make comes before the assembly. We saw orators, right? People who stand up at the Pnyx, they stand up on that stage and they say, I support this idea and here's why, right? And they kind of passionately try to convince the crowd, to go along with them, right? They make, if you will, they make an argument, right? They provide a conclusion and give premises, right? This is why we should do this. This is why we should do this thing, right? This is why we should close the door, because some people in the hallway are noisy. And even though I'm glad they're having a good time and they're happy, we don't really need to hear about it right now. So yeah, orators stand up and they give an argument, right? They use critical thinking, they make an argument. And then other orators stand up and say, no, I'm not in favor of this. We should say no to this proposition, and here's why, right? These guys kind of argue it out, and then everybody votes. And the vote is final, right? It has the strength of law. And so we hear a little bit about this, and then we see democracy kind of in action, right? We see the Athenians discover a bunch of silver in their territory. They get super rich, right? They basically win the lottery, if you will. What are we going to do with all of this money, right? Should we just divide it amongst all Athenian citizens? Ooh, maybe. That'd be fun, right? Should we, beautify our city with big buildings? Maybe. Should we build a fleet of warships, right? And Themistocles says yes, right? Themistocles gets up there and says, look, the Persians came and attacked us before. We defeated them, but we were kind of lucky, right? And they're going to come back, and when they do, we need to be ready, right? And so Themistocles makes a successful argument. He convinces the Athenians to spend money on those ships, right? Those triremes. Where are they? Oh, that's the Agora. That's the Pnyx. That's still the Pnyx. Those things, that thing. Right, so he convinces the Athenians to build a fleet of these things, right? And again, these are not transport ships, these are not merchant ships, these are warships, right? They are designed to do one thing, right? To sink other ships and to be really fast and really maneuverable at the same time. And they are, right? They're the elite fighter jets of the day, right? Really high performance pieces of technology that the Athenians can use, right, against the Persians. And we see them use it, right? There's a picture. Actually, this is kind of interesting. Whoops. A number of years ago, they actually built a replica trireme. And so this is a modern version. They built it in Greece as near as they could to the original design. They got a bunch of rowers. They trained, trying to sort of figure out how to row. And they actually built one of these things. So this is kind of, not only is this what it would have looked like in real life, this is what it does look like in real life. And so, again, there's 3 levels of rowers on each side. There's a lot of oars. And again, it really requires you to row in time, right? Because there's so many oars, if you're not in time, you're bumping into everybody else, right? So these boats often have a drummer beating out a rhythm so that everybody rows at the same time. And again, if you get really good, if you practice, these things can really move, right? They're really fast ships, especially for the day, right? Especially for 2,500 years ago. So, not a moment too soon. We saw this yesterday a little bit. The Persians come back to Greece, right? The Greeks hear that they're on their way, and they head to the Athenians head to the Oracle of Apollo at Delphi, right? And they ask the oracle, what should we do, right? How can we save ourselves and defeat the Persians, right? And the oracle says that Zeus grants to thrice-born Athena. Athena, of course, is who Athens is named after. Grants to thrice-born Athena a wooden wall. Only in this shall she be saved, right? And so again, lots of people debated, what does that mean? What's the wooden wall? But of course, Themistocles says, it's the ships, right? That's what's going to save us. And so as we saw, they abandon the city. They go off to hide in the countryside, the Athenians do. The Persians find Athens and burn it to the ground, which I'm sure must have been demoralizing and horrible for the Athenians. But they're waiting, they're lying in wait, right? They're lying in wait for the Persians. And so the Persians know that the Greeks are hiding out in this gap here in the red at Salamis, and Themistocles sends one of the Greeks off to talk to the Persians, and he pretends that he's ratting them out. He pretends that he's changing sides, and he says, "Look, you Persians, the Greeks are scared and they're panicking and they're going to run away. If you sail in there tomorrow, you'll be able to catch them trying to run away, and you'll be able to destroy them all." And so the Persians buy it, right? They fall for it. They're like, oh, we're going to get those Greeks, right? But of course, when they sail into the straits here the next morning, they don't find a bunch of disorganized, panicky Greeks. They find that the triremes are lined up, ready to go, right? And so the Persian navy enters the straits. They can't really maneuver very well. They can't all get in there at the same time. And then when they realize that it's a trap, they can't really back out either, right? And so the Athenian triremes basically destroy the Persian fleet, so much so that I think the Persians had to walk home from there. I don't think they were able to sail home. I think they had to walk home. Oh yeah, big time. Sorry, but they do. Yeah, and so in the documentary yesterday, Bethany was telling us about, what effect that had on the Athenians, right? This kind of why did they win, right? What makes them so special that they were able to defeat the Persians, because the Persians again are the superpower of the day, right? You know, imagine the United States picking a fight with, oh, I don't know, Madagascar, and Madagascar winning. That would be weird, right? You wouldn't expect Madagascar to beat the United States in a military conquest, but they do, right? And so the Athenians start asking themselves, well, what's different about us, right? Why did we succeed again? Okay, so that's kind of where we are. I'd like to watch a little bit more of the documentary. I've got some, you know, I'll post some questions here in Microsoft Teams, but we've kind of answered most of them already because we watched an extra 10 minutes of where'd it go? Oh, there we go. Yeah, we watched an extra 10 minutes yesterday, so I'll post these questions, but they're kind of already answered for the most part. But online people, let me just see where we're going to start from here, and then I'll let you know, because so let's see. Oh yeah, and we were on Euboea as well. Euboea. Okay. Okay, so this is about where we left off. We'll start around 38 minutes or so, and then go to... I'm actually going to let it go to 58 minutes. Okay, so we'll go 38 to 58 minutes. So yeah, online people, I'll let you watch that, and then we'll come back here, okay? So just very quickly there, you can see that, again, Bethany's point here, not Bethany, Bethany, her point here is that, you know, we often think of Greek democracy as this very kind of noble, idealistic sort of situation, right? But she's saying that, well, it's not really so great, right? Because there were some people that were free and able to participate in the democracy, right? Landowning male citizens of Athens. But there was lots of slaves, right? There were women who were oppressed. And Athenians used that voting ability to go into war constantly, right? She said there's really no 2 years in which Athens didn't vote to go to war, right? They set up that Delian League, right? They set up a defense, kind of like NATO, if you will, a defense alliance against the Persians, but then they started to kind of take advantage of it, right? And instead of their allies in this kind of fight against the Persians, they sort of started to dominate those other city-states, and they started to extract money from them, right? Instead of those contributions being voluntary, now they were required, right? And so Athens, instead of being head of an alliance, they kind of turned into the head of an empire, right? And so, again, there's some kind of negative things going on here. But as Bethany's getting into, there's also some pretty astonishing artistic and philosophical developments as well, right? Lots of incredible sculpture, as she's talking about here, and lots of incredible ideas and thinking, right? What they're talking about here in ancient Greece is really the beginnings of, at least in the Western tradition, it's the beginnings of science, right? Again, in most other places and before this, well, why are there stars in the sky? Well, there's a myth that explains that, right? Or God created the stars and put them in the sky, right? The knowledge comes from up there, right? Things are the way they are because someone or something up there made it so, right? But the Greeks are starting to ask questions like, well, maybe the world and the universe works in a predictable way, right? Maybe there are laws that if we, again, observe carefully and do experiments and think about it, maybe we can figure it out, right? Maybe we can figure out how the whole thing works. And, you know, that's kind of the definition of science, if you think about it, right? The world works in predictable ways. If we observe and do experiments and think about it, then maybe we can figure out what's going on, right? We can figure out how this universe operates. And as you can see, they're making progress here. They don't discover the atom, but they imagine that it exists, right? They imagine that all matter is made up of tiny little parts, right? Tiny, tiny little pieces that are not divisible, right? They're just one thing. And she says they call them atomas, right? And we call them atoms. The Greeks were right? They didn't know, they couldn't prove it, right? They didn't have microscopes like we have today, but they figured it out, right? They suspected or they hypothesized or they guessed that these things called atoms exist, right? And this is 2,500 years ago, and now, of course, we know that they do exist. So there's a lot going on in Athens here. There's a lot of very kind of high-minded, kind of exciting, sophisticated thought going on in art, in architecture, in philosophy, in what will become science, right? All of these sophisticated things going on. But also their democracy is kind of catering to some very basic motivations as well, right? Athens is using its democratic power basically to oppress the city-states around them, right? And to extract money from them and to beautify the city, right? And sort of the big guy of the time, Pericles, thinks this is great, right? Of course, this is what we should do, right? Not everyone agrees, but Pericles is very persuasive. And so Athens kind of goes down this road. But as Bethany mentions a few times here, what's going to wind up happening is that they're going to pick a fight with Sparta, right? And that's not going to turn out very well for them, but I won't spoil it any further than that. Okay, let's take a little break at this point. When we come back, we'll do some project work. Okay? All right, let's take a break. Okay, people, so I'm just going to interject very quickly. I'm going to turn you loose to work on your projects now because, again, we're getting very close to next week when we have to present. So take some time, get some work done. I'm going to get some work done here. Online people, I'm going to end this stream, but if you have any questions, you can message me, of course. But yeah, I'll let you get to work, okay? So I'm going to end the stream here, but otherwise I'll see you tomorrow morning. And don't forget, of course, we have a quiz on Friday. Don't forget that. Yeah.
29 to 40.
Correct.
Sir,
Yes.
we have quiz on Friday and we have to upload the presentation until Saturday? Or?
You have to upload it by Tuesday morning so that we're ready to go
Tuesday morning of next week?
of next week.
We don't still have time on Tuesday morning, right?
We can work it on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday.
Yep. Tuesday, you got to be ready to go. Okay. Okay. So online people, I'll see you tomorrow, and yeah, and we'll the rest of the time to work. Okay. So good luck.